Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam's first canto, first chapter, questioned by the sages. Today's text is 19. Vayang tu navitri pyama uttama sloka vikrame yatsin vatan rasagyanam svadu svadu pade pade. Translation. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who enjoy association with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. Purport. There's a great difference between mundane stories, fictions or history, and the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The histories of the whole universe contains reference to the pastimes and incarnations of the Lord, The Ramayana, Mahabharata and the Puranas are histories of bygone ages, recorded in connection with the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord, and therefore remain fresh even after repeated readings. For example, anyone may read Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly throughout his whole life, and yet find in them new light of information. Mundane news is static, whereas transcendental news is dynamic inasmuch as the spirit is dynamic and matter is static. Those who have developed a taste for understanding the transcendental subject matters are never tired of hearing such narrations. One is quickly satiated by mundane activities, but no one is satiated by transcendental or devotional activities. Uttama Sloka indicates that literature which is not meant for omniscience. Mundane literature is in the mode of darkness or ignorance, whereas transcendental literature is quite different. Transcendental literature is above the mode of darkness, and its light becomes more luminous with progressive reading and realization of the transcendental subject matter. The so-called liberated persons are never satisfied by the repetition of the words Aham Brahmasmi. Such artificial realization of Brahman becomes hackneyed, and so to relish real pleasure, they turn to the narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are not so fortunate turn to altruism and worldly philanthropy. This means the Mayavadi philosophy is mundane, whereas the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental. Karoti vataram bhangam langate kanyat kripatamam mande Sri Gurum Dina Charanam. We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who enjoy association with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So here again, we hear about the importance of hearing about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. And we often wonder I often wonder at least, why there's no more taste. Because it's Krishna, and Krishna we know is all attractive. And we are invited into the spiritual world by just opening a book or just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam class or hearing lectures. So what is it that keeps us from this? And this, of course, is attraction to Maya. So the mind is can either choose, right? We cannot be in both sides at the same time. Like a boat, we have a feet in one boat and the feet in the other boat, and then they are going separating. So at one point you have to choose which boat do you like to be in. So we are, most of us are like in between. We are not fully devoted and invested in Krishna consciousness, and not fully, hopefully, invested in Maya or illusion. So we are somewhere in between. And for that reason, we undergo sufferings. We know for the pure devotee there's no suffering, because he's completely absorbed in Krishna. He's in the spiritual world even while he's material body, so to say, still in the material world. So therefore, for such a person, there's no suffering. But suffering is good. And actually, Sati, she says that after the whole thing with Lord Shiva, where Shiva, he blasphemes her husband. Oh, sorry, Daksha blasphemes her husband Shiva. And she says, actually it's good that people like you, he said, tells her father, to criticize people, because that is the way they fall down. So to fall down from spiritual existence is of course not good in that sense, but Krishna will keep us away from making offenses to devotees. And also Krishna will teach us through suffering. That's often, like, a fool learn no other way. That's often how we learn. We're not so inclined to learn just by our own endeavors. We need experience, and from experience comes normally suffering. So in order to teach us that, Krishna is showing so many examples. We have Vidura, coming back after his pilgrimage, he's preaching to Dhritarashtra. So Vidura had been preaching to Dhritarashtra his whole life practically. He's his brother, and he was of the course on the side of Krishna, and Dhritarashtra was sort of like in between. He was not really against Krishna as such, but he was so attached to his son, and he was so weak, so he couldn't give up his attachment for his son. So instead he chose to dedicate his life to follow the instructions of his son instead of following the instructions of Lord Krishna. So Vidura was always preaching to him, but with very, very little effect. Very little effect. Some, but very little. But after he come back from pilgrimage and he tells Dhritarashtra, now you are coughing up mucus and you are getting hard of hearing, your liver is defective, and all these, you can't hardly hear anymore, you can't see anymore, you were able to see. So now your body is practically useless, right? And at the same time you are living at the cost and at the mercy of Yudhishthira and Pandavas, who you are trying to kill by arson and by poison in so many ways. You were trying to kill them, and you took all their possessions away from them, including their own bodies. Took their wife, took all the land, everything was taken away from them. Of course, the Dhritarashtra, he gave it back, and that's for his credit. So when Vidura, he came back and he told the Dhritarashtra all this, you're finished, you're living here like a beggar, and the persons you were trying to kill, and your body is finished. So now you better take sannyas. Then it really hit something in the Dhritarashtra, and him and Gandhari, they went to the mountains, and ultimately he left his life there, his body there. And we know with Arjuna, Krishna is preaching to Arjuna, and Krishna is saying so many things to Arjuna, but Arjuna really, he's arguing with Krishna. How is it now? How can I go against? How can I kill Bhishma and Drona? How can I kill my teachers? And how can I give up all we have here for we will lose everything if we're not performing pious activities. And Krishna, he's Arjuna is saying, Caitanya Candradasa tasvabhava prichchamitam dharma samudatita yatseya sanishtitan bruhi sanme sishastyam sarimam trampapanam. Caitanya, now I'm full of miserly dosha, weakness. I'm overcome. Caitanya Candradasa prichchamitam dharma. I'm asking you to tell what is my swadharma. What is it? What should I do? I'm in this terrible condition. So that's the power of hearing. Right? Arjuna is saying to Krishna, please tell me. Sishastyam sarimam trampapanam. Now prapanam, now I'm fully surrendered unto you, and I'm Sishya, I'm your disciple. Sishastyam sarimam trampapanam. So now please instruct me. Now please instruct me. I'm in this terrible condition. So now please instruct me. And then Arjuna, just after, he says, I will not fight. So what is Krishna doing there? Smiling. Krishna is smiling. So imagine when friends come to you, he asks your counsel, I'm very sad, and this is happening to me, and I'm this terrible condition, and you just smile. So, very good. So that's what Krishna is doing. He's saying, very, very good, because now you're ready to hear. Now you're undergoing so much suffering. Now you're ready to open your heart. Now you're open to hear with your full attention. and really act on hearing. And then Krishna starts speaking the whole Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is just sitting there listening. And in the end of the 18th chapter, Krishna is asking, have you understood, Arjuna? Have you understood now? I told you all this. And Prabhupada says, otherwise he was ready to explain the whole thing again. Prabhupada speaks about the importance of Guru. He's making his disciple really understand. It's not just giving over transformation, it's a transformation of heart. So Krishna is saying, have you understood, Arjuna, or should I explain the whole thing again? And Arjuna says, Nastu moha smritya labdva. Nastu moha, now there's no more illusion. Nastu moha smritya labdva. And I've regained my memory, Krishna. Now I know, now I can remember what I should, because we lost our memory. We don't know what is right and what is wrong. Or at least we are not enough convinced to really act it out every day, every second of our lives. So Nastu moha smritya labdva, trat prasadam, by your mercy, Achyuta. By your mercy, trat prasadam maya Achyuta. Stito asmi gata sandeha, now I'm firmly situated, gata sandeha, and there's no more doubts. This is the reason for hearing. This is the reason we're opening Bhagavatam. This is the reason for hearing Bhagavatam class, hearing Krishna book in the evening. That is the reason for the whole thing. Removing our doubts, regaining our memory, and saying, now Krishna, karishe vatavang tava, now I'm ready to follow your instructions, now I'm ready to follow your orders. And this is what Krishna is giving us in the Shastras. Krishna is teaching us how to live. And then he is giving us all these beautiful, beautiful pastimes. So we are attracted, mundane people are attracted to cinemas and novels and all these things with so much, like either it's horror, or it's very, very exciting, or it's very romantic, or it's very sad, or ghastly, or whatever, right? Because we need feelings, we need emotions, we need inspirations. So people are reading books, people are watching movies, and theaters and computers and whatever, to get inspired, to get some entertainment. So we have everything there in the Bhagavatam and Krishna book, right? Or everything. There's sadness or some kind of horror, right? When Krishna is dancing on Kaliya's heads, it's horror for all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, but we are just sitting by nonchalantly, not really influenced or really in the same mindset. But if we were there, having the same love like the inhabitants of Vrindavan, we would undergo the same emotions as they are. But we are just reading, oh yeah, then this happened and this happened, and nothing really, no real emotions are coming up, right? We are not crying, we are not in anxiety, oh no, what will happen to Krishna? Because we see it as fiction. I see it as fiction, right? Because we are so used with absorbing fiction from so many places, from the internet, from television, etc. So we are used with that. But Bhagavatam is real. I think I mentioned recently, like this is the real world. The material world is the illusion. And the material world is where we put our most of our energy, most of our time for most of us. Right? That's where we invest our energy and our time, absorption in the body, absorption in the mind, absorption in all these worldly matters. But this is the real world. Bhagavatam is the real world. And we are invited. So there's horror when Krishna is dancing on Kaliya's heads. And there's excitement. Krishna and the cowherd boys, they're walking around in Vrindavan, and all of a sudden they see a snake, 8 miles long. Imagine that was a long snake. Right? And he opens his mouth, and it's reaching the skies, the clouds. So this huge snake is lying in the middle of the ground. And the cowherd boys are sort of like frivolously or nonchalantly going towards it and saying, oh, what is this? And this must be some, because they can't see the snake because it's so big. But as they get closer, they can smell the fish and rotten meat it's been eating. So they understand, oh, maybe it's a living entity, maybe we're in danger here. But then they think, anyway, Krishna will protect us. So they just keep singing and walking into the mouth of Aghasura. And then Krishna is saying, Bhagavatam says, Krishna is saying, oh, what should I do now? Right? Because now all my cowherd boys, they're there. But Aghasura is not doing anything because he wants Krishna, so he's just waiting with closing his mouth. And then Krishna says, okay, I have a plan. So he also walks into the mouth of Aghasura. Imagine this. We should try to put ourselves in this situation. All of a sudden they're in the mouth of this huge snake. And then the snake closes his mouth. And then Krishna, he has his plan. He says, okay, now I'll just expand myself. So then this huge snake suffocates. But it kills all the cowboys, isn't it? Right?
They're captured, yeah.
They're killed. They're not just captured, they're killed. Right? It says Krishna, afterwards he brings them back to life. Imagine this. Have you ever seen this in any movies? So we have everything there to a much, much higher extent. But somehow or other, there's no attraction. Sinutam svakata Krishna punya sravanam kirtanam. Lityan tastoya patrani vidanorisritsatam. By hearing Srimatam Svakata Krishna, right? Hearing this Srimatam Svakata Krishna, Punya Sravanam Kirtanam. By hearing this, that is the message of Krishna and the topics of Krishna, which are virtues in themselves. What? Abatani, Vidunori Sritsatam. Abatani, they remove everything that is impious or bad for us, right? Vidunori, it cleanses. Sritsatam, the heart of the devotees who is doing this. So we have this, not only are we entertained if we are intelligent and really understand what goes on, but at the same time our hearts are purified. So we actually get more attraction by hearing. And that of course diminishes the attraction we have for the illusory world, Maya world. Or we want romance. What is there? Krishna's dancing with the gopis for a night of Brahma. That's a long time. And they're dancing together. For them it feels like a night, normal night. Because they're so absorbed being with Krishna, kissing Krishna, being with Krishna, dancing with Krishna. And then all of a sudden, after this long, long dance where they was just completely in ecstasy that felt like a moment, then Krishna disappears. And all their completely anxiety disappears with Srimati Radharani, as we know. And they're completely anxiety out trying to find Krishna. And Srimati Radharani, she's being with Krishna and she says, oh Krishna, please carry me, being very romantic. And Krishna, he also disappears. And then Srimati Radharani is completely, oh no, why did I ask you? I didn't want to offend you, please come back to me, I can't live without you. So this separation, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare, right? But nothing compares to this. And the gopis, they go completely mad in separation from Krishna. That is love. There's no love, Prabhupada says there's no love in this world. Right? There's no love in this world. But there, even though, because we are so attached to that feeling of being in love, being with such a person as Krishna, being so much infatuated and in love, we do it in this mundane world. And even that we like to hear about people being in love in this mundane world, being in so-called love in this material world. But it's a reflection, it's the banyan tree in the water. It's not a real thing. So everything is there. We have everything at our fingertips. We can open the windows into the spiritual world. We can sit down and we can get enticed by all these pastimes. Or when Krishna is leaving Vrindavan, all the anxiety, and the gopis are completely surrendering themselves, throwing themselves in front of the wheels so Aghasura cannot take Krishna out of Vrindavan, and beating up Aghasura. These village coward boys, they're coward girls, they're beating up Aghasura with their bangles and smashing him because he'll take Krishna away, so they will not allow it. And Krishna eventually leaves, and then they're in complete anxiety, just standing there like statues, right? Being completely absorbed. Oh, now Krishna has left. And the whole thing, whole Vrindavan just shut down. Right? Nobody's doing anything anymore. There's no reason to live. Krishna's not here anymore. So that's love, that's separation, that's romance. And then of course we know Krishna comes back, and he's never really leaving. So hearing these things purifies our heart and develop that attraction that is natural for the soul. That is our Nityasiddha Krishna Prema, that is our natural attraction. And it's the only way, we know that. That's the only way we can attain real happiness. We know everything here is asashvatam. Everything here is temporary. And everything is dukkha-alaya. Right? It's a place where there's misery all over. So naturally there's misery, and we are miserable, because we are in a place for misery. If you go into a coal mine with a white dress on, And then you have to walk through this cold man. Don't expect to get out without any dirt on your hat, your smoking, whatever. So Prabhupada says that hearing and explaining is more important than reading. And he says again and again, Shravanam is the most important item of devotional service, of the 9 processes. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu is the first one, Shravanam, Kirtanam. But then it says it's enhanced. I'm not sure that's the word he's using, but it's enhanced by the kirtan. So Shravanam you hear, and then you can chant. Right? So it's enhanced by the kirtan. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, they go together. You can not really have one without the other. If you're hearing properly, then we want to chant. And when we're chanting, purifies the heart more, and we will like to hear more. So Shravanam and Kirtanam, if you perform just that, that's perfection. And we know that's what, I think I mentioned that recently, that's what Pariksit Maharaj he chose to do. Now he has 7 days to live before he dies, and he sit down and hear Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada says, I think it's coming just here, maybe in a few next 2 verses, that we should learn from the sages of Naimisaranya that there's no other way to make progress than hearing like they're doing. That's the only way to make progress, Prabhupada says. The only way to make progress. So only by hearing like what the sages are doing, like Pariksit Maharaj is doing, that's the way to make progress. And Prabhupada says only by hearing the, again I'm paraphrasing, the literatures of the previous acharyas. So often we hear we can only read Prabhupada's books. No, it's definitely recommended to read Prabhupada's books, all of them, maybe several times. But there's so much more literature out there, there's so much more we can absorb ourselves in. Right? The previous acharyas have written them, and they are, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's disciples, they are translated into English. So we have all this literature just available to us, where we can dive into a specific topic, a specific quality of Krishna, specific attachment we have, attraction we have for Krishna. So we have all this and go in depth studying. Why not studying the Bhagavad Gita so we know it by heart? Prabhupada actually said we should. We should know it like the Christians know their Bibles, Prabhupada says. So, and then if we understand this literature, if we understand Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Nectar of Devotion, these are the most important books, Prabhupada says. If you understand that literature, then we can preach. Then we can convince people. And we heard recently, like, what is the condition? Prabhupada says there's one condition for hearing Bhagavatam. And then he only mentioned one, actually. And he says the disciple has to be, remember this, very serious and attentive. And the speaker has to be in the line of the previous acharyas. So then it becomes, when we speak, then we are really touching the heart. Because we have something to develop. We have realized, that's what's happening when we're reading, when we're studying, when we hear it every day. Then realizations comes. And realizations, vijnan, when the heart is speaking, the heart is listening. But when the mouth is speaking, the ears are listening. So we need the transformation of the heart, and that's what Bhagavatam is all for. So I think I used my time. Any comments or questions?
All clear, all
Good.
clear.
Good. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Okay.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Okay.